Hey Kelly, have you ever wondered what to do with roadkill?
How to identify whether it's edible, the procedures that you would take to prepare it.
Let's have a look, shall we?
So as you'll probably guess from the thumbnail and the title, roadkill rabbit. Now what we're about to show you is there's different ways that you can prepare rabbit for a start. So I'm giving you a across the board on how you can prepare most animals that you're likely to find on the side of the road anyway. So with your roadkill, the first thing that you would do, well that I would do as I approach the roadkill, is I'm looking for eyes. Now before we look down at the rabbit, just so you know, this is a vegan friendly version. So how am I checking the eyes? Well, if we look down, our road-killed rabbit. We was tempted to put some tyre tracks across it, but we thought that's a bit much. Anyhow, so you might look at your rabbit and find that it's not got an eye. Now the best way to tell whether your roadkill is fresh enough to eat is to check the eyes. Now if the eye is missing, that could mean one of two things. It could mean that it's rotted away, or it could mean that a crow has plucked it out. The birds tend to go for the eyes first. So what I would do is if the eye is missing or I'm not sure, I would just turn the bunny over and check that it's got a good eye.
Oh, look at that.
And if the eyelid's closed, you need to open it and have a look and see how fresh that eye is. If it's shriveled like a raisin, chances are is the meat has probably already passed. Bloating as well is another thing. So if this rabbit looked unusually large, it's going to be started to be gassy, it's going to start to be smelly. A little bit of bloating, that's a personal thing, I think. You can get away with a small amount, not too much. The next thing that I would be looking for is where's the damage on the rabbit, or the animal. So for example, if the damage is a broken neck, the head will be super floppy. Now that is actually a preferable way for the animal to have died, because it means that the rest of the meat is more than doable, and of course that it was quick. But sometimes the rabbit might be run over mid-rift, for example. Now it will become a bit more obvious when I describe how you're preparing the meat as to why that would be a problem. But if it's lower down on the meat, it would be something that we would likely pass to the dog than have ourselves. As you'll see, because we're doing this with a vegan friendly toy, we have put a little thing on it to act as its pelt. Now the reason for that is because most animals, you're going to want to do a similar thing. Now there is such a thing as degloving, and there's different methods. Many people have their ways. I'm giving you a pretty universal, easy way. So preparing the meat, first thing you want to do is you want to lift the skin away from the actual organs on the belly. And the incision you're going to make is literally like this. You're going to cut down here, there, and then you're going to pull it up and then just do a little cut here. So essentially, we're only going up to the rib cage of the animal. So you'll feel the rib cage there. You've cut, and then you've held the skin and you've made a little cut here, held the skin and made a little cut here. So now you should be able to see the internal organs there. Now, I have my method for removing the organs for a very good reason, and as I said about the crushing of the rabbit in a certain place would mean passing it to the dog. This is a reason why I do it my way. Once the incision's made, I wouldn't be doing it with a gloved hand, just for the record, but I would put my hand under the rib cage. Now when you've got underneath the rib cage, you can feel around it and you can move, because the organs inside the rib cage, all the organs are sort of attached to the inside of the rib wall. So what I'm doing is putting my hand in and I'm circling it around to pull it away from the rib cage on the inside. Then once I've done that on the inside, all the way around and up the back, I go up and you'll feel the throat on the inside. So I'll grab the animal by the head, hold on to it whilst it's like this, and then I'm going to pull the guts out like this. Now what you'll find is the guts are going to hang out like this. Now there's a reason why I do it like that rather than just pulling out like this. The reason you don't really want to pull out like this is because of the bladder sac and the bowels. So by pulling them out here like this, you're at risk of rupturing the bladder sac, and the bladder sac is very thin, so it's easily ruptured. And if you rupture the bladder sac, you're likely, or the bowels, you're going to taint the meat. So by holding it up and doing it like that, they'll fall out and then they'll just hang from there, where it's then easier to pull the last of that out. You will find that there will be a little attachment, which is normally the bowel. Now to remove the bowel, once I've got all of that out the way, I will open the legs and there will be a pelvic bone.
Almost like a wishbone, yeah?
A bit like that, but the wishbone's at the top, the pelvic bone will be there. So what I'll do is I'll snap the pelvic bone, just because it then makes it easier to remove the last of the intestines and the bowels.
Cool.
So now the inside of the rabbit should be clean. Now when I say should be clean, one thing that you do really want to check for is that the lungs have been removed. Once you've got your guts out, you'll know the lungs, because the lungs will be a lighter pinker colour and they're almost slightly tissuey, is a good way to describe the lung texture. It's important to remove the lungs because on some animals, lungs can poison the meat, or at least that's what I've heard. I don't know how true that statement is, so it might be worth looking into that. But
it is from, especially as a fisherman as well, me being coastally, lungs, it's to do with they filter out certain toxins within the water.
Yeah,
so yeah, always best to avoid them.
I mean, it's just, I've always just had it as a key rule of thumb, make sure all of the lung is removed. You also want to check, once you've emptied the organs, that A, they're intact, i.e. the bladder sac has not burst. It's still a little bladder full of, it will look like a little water balloon.
Oh yeah, like a little golf ball size.
Little golf ball size water balloon. I mean, depending on the size of the animal actually, because if you've got a smaller animal, the bladder will be smaller, you know. But you're looking at the colouring of them, making sure there's no scars, marks and tarnishes. So, like I say, nice healthy dark red purpley colours is what you want on the organs. So discard the organs. If you're lucky and you've got a dog like ours, he'll eat them all for you and clean them up, so that's nice. So now we're getting on to removing the pelt. So first of all, as you'll see, I'm making little marks around here because I'm not going to be able to do this with a knife. I'm going to have to do this with scissors for explanation, you know, for demonstration purposes. Yes, thank you, darling. So we've already got our incision here. Now what I tend to do is I will get in between the skin and the meat, the flesh, the bones if you like, and I'm doing what I'd done to release the innards from the rib cage, but this time I'm above the rib cage, obviously in between the skin, and I'm loosening it all up, loosening it up around the legs. Once I've got it fairly loose, I'm going to cut with a knife, not a pair of scissors, down to here, to the ankle. Then I'm going to cut around the ankle, and of course the same on the other side. The reason why I would make an incision around the ankle here is because I can keep hold of the foot while I work on peeling this back. So you can peel it all the way back, all the way back. Now you will find this back bit here is going to be attached to the towel. So what I would then do is with my knife, not a pair of scissors, is I would cut the bone there on the towel. Once that's come away with the towel, you can now work all of that back bit out. You can try and get down these shoulders a bit, try and get down this shoulder a little bit. So you're loosening all that skin up nicely. By that point, you should be able to hold the feet and pull it like this. Now once you get that far, you should be able to pull these arms out. You will find that the tip of the foot will stay in place. And the same here. You'll find that the tip of the foot will stay in place. So the pelt will kind of look like that at the end of it. This makes life a little bit, shall we say, if you are a little squeamish, this will make life a little easier, because then you don't have to see the face of the animal when you're taking the head off. So at this point, it's cut here, and of course the last thing will be the head. I'm not going to do it with a tiny pair of scissors, it's going to be ridiculous. So the last thing you'd remove is the head from there, and then the feet. Just again, a chop and a chop. And there you should have your clean rabbit. Now, some people, when they're preparing their meat, particularly with a rabbit, because it can be quite fluffy, and when you're dealing with a pelt, you can end up with fur attached to the meat. Some people are bothered, some people aren't. It depends how you're cooking it, really. If it is something that would bother you, a little tip for that is to wet the fur before you start processing it. Now, as I said, that is a process that you can use with most animals, apart from birds. Birds are slightly different in that you're not necessarily taking the pelt off as you're plucking. And of course you've got the wings to deal with and such. So that is a little bit of a different one. And if I'm honest, I really don't know how I could demo that with a stuffed toy, because stuffed toys don't come with feathers in them. But the process is fairly similar. So I guess you could use your imagination. A little tip, I guess, for dealing with the feathered types is, if you're lucky enough and you've got the animal and it's still warm and it hasn't been dead for long, the feathers will pluck out fairly easily. If it's cold, then the animal, the feathers, it's almost like the skin torts around the feather stem. So to get it to release, a good way to do it is to dunk it in boiling water, hold it there for a few seconds, pull it out, and you should just be able to brush the feathers off it. It's quite easily done like that. Another good thing actually that I didn't mention with the roadside is rigor mortis. Now, when I first started dealing with animals on the side of the road like that, and I'd see that they've got rigor mortis, at first I thought, oh no, that seems like it's past it. I don't want to eat that. Then I learned through catching and trapping animals and dealing with what I know to be fresh meat, the animal itself within the first 24 hours is going to get a rigor mortis. Now that's a good sign that that animal's not been dead for too long. It's only been dead for 24 hours at the most. It does kind of depend on climate, obviously. If you watch your CSIs, you'll know that depending on the climate, temperature and atmospheric pressures, or I don't know, moisture in the air, that kind of thing, it can affect the rigor mortis time. But it shouldn't be too much of a window whereby it determines that your meat's no good. You know, it should still be within the window. Some people like to hang their meats. That's I think it's dependent on what kind of meat it is and how old it is. If the animal is quite old, the meat can be tough, and if you hang the meat, and again depending on the climate, you can hang meat for up to 2 weeks, particularly poultry. The hanging of it will help to break down some of the, I'm not really all up to par on the science of it, but something to do with the fibres in the meat itself. It helps break them down a little bit, makes them more pliable, makes them softer, more palatable.
So I know there's going to be comments below and people asking, so what, you just chuck the pelt away? What's the reason for the pelt?
Well, there's different things you could do with a pelt. I mean, we can use it to make things. Personally, we don't really bother with that because pelts take a certain amount of upkeep, particularly if you want to keep the fur on them. So we give them to the dog because the pelt and the fur on the animal will help clear the dog out. So if he's got any parasites in his stomach, worms, anything like that, it's really good for their digestive system to eat that. But not only that, anything left there, for us, because we have got a dog that eats quite lavishly, shall we say, when it comes to things like roadkill and that. He doesn't mind, so there is literally no waste when we have roadkill. He'll eat the head, the ears, any discarded bits, the feet, the paws.
He's even that disgusting that he'll want to eat the intestines sometimes, isn't he? So
yeah, oh yes, yeah. He eats.
But sometimes he'll leave them, because I think that's the natural thing with animals, isn't it? They know what's healthy and what's not as well.
Yes, and I think maybe if the animal that has expired has eaten something the dog wouldn't ordinarily eat, maybe he can smell that in the digestive tract and he just leaves it alone. Maybe. I don't know. But I guess there we are for the ones that are curious on how we deal with roadkill. Clearly we needed to make this a vegan friendly or vegetarian friendly episode on how to manage this. A lot of people have been asking the question, and we get a lot of comments that we're not real because we don't show this sort of thing. It's not about not being real, it's about not wanting to ruin a good business that we've started here on YouTube. I mean, YouTube is an income, and if you're not careful and you show too much, you can be demonetized. It's not something that we really want to throw into the mix there and risk it. So it's not worth it for us, as this is a means of an income for us. So therefore, caution will be had. However, for those of you that are doubters, we will flash up an image. I'm going to count down. This image has been pixelated, so it's not too terrible, but I am aware that it could be offensive to some. So 3, 2, 1. Skip 10 seconds. Now, as you'll see, that wasn't a rabbit, that was a hare, a really large hare. And the reason I look so happy about the hare is it was a Christmas day. And on that Christmas day, we had no Christmas dinner. We had no money. We were working on a security gig. So we were manning a site for somebody on a new build. We didn't have any, we literally, I think we had noodles, a pack of noodles and a pepperami. That was our Christmas dinner. So we went out to take the dog for a walk before we came back to tuck into our noodles. Having took the dog for a walk, we found 2 of those. Yeah. 2 of those huge hares, and they were dead on the side of the road. They must have been a pair or something, because they weren't far apart, were they?
No.
So sadly, it looked like they'd tried to cross the road and both got hit. One was a bit too damaged for modern eye to make use of, so Doggo had a whole hare to himself, which he did eat in one sitting, I will add. I think ours lasted a few days, though, didn't it?
A couple of days, I think so. Yeah.
A good meal.
Yes.
So that's why I look so impressed that I had it, you know. I mean, you can imagine that being quite a win on a Christmas day when all you had was noodles to eat. Yep. So just to summarise then on this episode, firstly, this is just for roadkill. This is a bit of a universal method in that you could use this with squirrel, rabbit, badger, deer even. It's a fairly universal way to prepare the meat. So, but this is roadkill specific. We're not advocating for people to go out there murdering animals. This is only with what you've already found to be unalived. Also, another word of caution to be had is that if it was you that had accidentally hit that animal and it's on the roadside, do not get out and collect your own roadside kill, because in the UK that is very much illegal. It's
classed as poaching, isn't it?
It is classed as poaching, and you can see why, because people could go out of their way to deliberately hit an animal just so they could chuck it in their car, and it's not on.
Times are getting tough, right?
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
So just to recap then on a roadkill meat prep, the first thing you want to check is for the eyes. Turn the meat out, turn the animal over if it's missing its eye, just to be sure that it's definitely missing both eyes. So you want to check eyes, you want to check for bloating, and you also want to check how the animal died if you can. Sometimes it's not obvious until you've emptied the animal out, until you've already started processing it. But generally, you should be able to know if it's got a broken back, if it's been crushed through the middle, or if it's got a broken neck just by handling it. Next recap is when you're coming to gut the animal. You want the incision from the rib cage down to the groin, and making sure that you lift that skin so as not to damage any of the organs within as you're cutting that little bit of strip there. Then the next tip is to release the organs from the inside of the rib cage and hold the rabbit up before you pull it out, before you pull the innards out, only so that you don't rupture that urine sac. And of course, if that urine sac has been ruptured, chances are as your meat's been tainted. Depending on how starving you are, will depend on whether or not you eat that, because it's not necessarily poisonous, it just might not taste very nice. Next tip is to check your organs. Make sure that the organs are good. They're not tarnished in any way with scarring or welts or discolouring. The lungs should be nice and light pink and fluffy and tissuey. Make sure they're removed too. Check your inside of your animal to ensure that there's nothing lying in the back of the rib cage, because that's where I find normally it's a bit harder to get the lungs off, is at the back of the rib cage. To break the pelvis is an easy way to remove the last of the bowels. And of course, before you go to remove your pelt, it does help if you make an incision around the back ankles of the animal, because you can hold on to the foot and peel it back that way. Another little tip is, once you get the pelt all the way down to the arms, to the wrists and the neck, at least then it's inside out over the animal. You don't have to see the face, and you can remove the head and the hands, not sure if you call them hands, paws, hooves, whatever it is. I hope this has been a non-distressing way to disclose this information, share something with you. Hopefully we haven't offended anybody. And if you do have any questions, or that you feel that I haven't covered in this, do leave a comment below, and we will do our best to answer in the most tasteful way as possible.
So if you have enjoyed today's content
and our roadkill satire,
do consider giving us a thumbs up, liking, sharing around and all that jazz. It really does help the channel. If you don't like the adverts, do consider becoming a YouTube premium member. It's only £20 a month for the family plan, or £6 a month for the single plan, I think it is.
We're on it.
Yeah, we're on it because we don't like adverts. You know, it's a way YouTube pays us through advertisers,
or through the premium,
and anything like that. We get a cut of that, but it will stop the adverts, right? Anyway, Cully, next video going to come out. I'm going to go into wild medicinals that we use for ourselves, and stay tuned for that one.
Happy hopping.
Also, this bit we've saved for the end. Some people don't like the adverts and all that lot, but to show our gratitude and appreciation to you guys, leave you all over the screen. The one-off lot of you're awesome. The monthly contributors now, you're absolutely brilliant. If you do like our content and you want a bit more of a personal touch as well, consider becoming a channel member too, but not necessary, really not.
It's just for the additional content, really, if you're interested and you want a little extra.
Yeah.
And you can opt out at any time.
Yes, yeah, very true. But just to show appreciation as you guys do as well. So thank you.